Hello, hello. Happy April. Hope everyone had a marvelous and glorified Easter. Today I have with me John Brisson of We've Read the Documents. He has a YouTube channel. He has a very, very impressive Twitter following. A little bit jealous.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it's impressive or not.
Well, it's to me it is. And just doing it, when you go down these rabbit holes, it's very rare to find people that can decipher through. You've caught all the tricks, you've caught all the red herrings that the controlled opposition, the psyops, the gatekeepers, the limited hangouts throw at us. You've done your homework and you can call it a mile away when somebody is not who they say they are. And that's so indispensable when you're on this journey for truth and knowledge and clarity. And what drew me to John's work was he was able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again in a way. What I mean by that is when it came to election interference or election tampering, namely with these electronic voting machines, he follows people, this Jenny Cohn woman who has some good stuff about the, I don't want to call them rumors. They're pretty believable at this point, back to 2004 with, was Diebold the original name of Dominion Software?
There's different subsidiaries of the election companies.
Okay, yeah.
But go ahead, Quinton. I'm sorry,
Sure.
but
Not at all. Please jump in at any time. I'm just trying to give this layout first before for
yeah.
people that haven't done your level of research. So what threw me off is how, and I know you can claim hypocrisy, but John helps you understand that when someone's just deliberately hypocritical, yes, maybe they're a jerk. More so, it's indicative that we're in the middle of a dialectic, that we're being set up, that they're intentionally just trying to hit the ball back and forth and distract us. And I mean,
agree.
I know they think we're stupid, but a lot of us aren't. And so when you had gatekeepers like Amy Goodman of Democracy Now!, who rightfully went after Ken Blackwell, who I know of his biography well, being from here in Ohio, and then just have nothing to say about the Dominion software, that's fishy. And again, that doesn't, neither of us, oh, Trump's not innocent in any of this. He's not a victim here. So that's why we also encourage people, don't feel like Trump needs your tears. Trust, we'll get there. He doesn't. But you've been able to merge. What's the plan here? Because they're all on the same side. And I haven't, maybe you have, I don't know why they used it against Trump in 2020.
I mean, myself, Quinton, I grew up as a neoconservative Christian. I love, I grew up with my grandfather listening to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and watching the McLaughlin Group. And I was very much in that mindset. Now, my father was a conspiracy theorist. I used to listen to Bill Cooper with him when I was growing up. He really didn't care for Alex Jones that much. Sometimes we'd listen to Art Bell. And so my dad was more like, you sure you really want to put your trust in George W. Bush and all these unsavory characters, and I was like, nah, I kind of had the politics of my grandfather. And I mean, it's normal for people to rebel against their parents, right? So, but later, I was watching Alex Jones, December 2008. Actually, no, I was listening to the radio on AM 640 and Coast to Coast AM, George Norrie had Alex Jones on. And so Alex Jones started talking about how 9/11 was an inside job. And so, my dad passed away in 2004 due to complications of hepatitis C. And, since then I kind of, just drifted, as most people do. Both my parents died when I was young. So it's kind of just, my grandparents were still living and they helped raise me when I was younger, but it was still kind of just me, right? So you kind of drift through your 20s, and so I eventually, figured out that we had been lied to, that 9/11 was an inside job. And I started, really questioning the Bush administration and later, having completely no trust in the Obama administration. And, I drifted to Gnosticism because that happens to many people in the conspiracy movement. They become New Agers because the conspiracy movement is rife with New Agers, and the good Lord, how I became born again a few years ago. I don't know if it's, hopefully God let me wander through the wilderness to kind of, I guess, use polemics against Gnostics and New Agers. But I voted for Trump in 2016. I hook, line, and sinker fell for the Council for National Policy propaganda. And we'll talk about the CNP. And that Trump was our guy, that he was fighting the deep state, that he was an outsider. Like, I completely hook, line, and sinker, like, fell for it. But then I started noticing that, so things weren't adding up. I watched a documentary called The Secret Right Volume 1 by Josh Reeves, and it was made back in 2009. It talks about the CNP, but I watched the second part. Second part had more people in the CNP, and also had that Alex Jones was part of the CNP. So if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't have voted for Trump, because I watched a documentary right before the election, but I missed it. And so I went back and I started noticing, wait a minute, Trump's filling the cabinet full of swamp creatures and people I saw in this movie. Like, this is not adding up. And then when he attacked the abandoned airfield in Syria, I mean, I ripped the bumper sticker, Trump bumper sticker off my car. I was like, I'm done, I'm out, And ever since then, man, oh man, it's been like 2020. I didn't vote for anybody. I don't think I'm ever going to vote again. And I'll talk about that later. Some people may be upset about that, and I understand that, but this is how I look at it. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is, you mentioned John Kenneth Blackwell. Well, John Kenneth Blackwell is a long-term Council for National Policy member. He's also a Council of Foreign Relations member too. I call him a kingmaker, because he plays both sides. And a lot of people like Jennifer Cohn, who, yes, I do respect some of her work on election integrity. However, she has her cognitive biases. Granted, we all do. She's a progressive, but she doesn't call out the progressive side of the world order. Now, my friend George from cavdev.org, and cavdev, has done a lot of work on election integrity. He is progressive himself, but yet George, will not, hold any punches when it comes to calling out the liberal side of the world order. Okay. Just like me as a, true Christian conservative, I'm going to call out this phony Council for National Policy and the malarkey that they push. All right. Because we all have the people that we used to idolize, or we're told to idolize, by the CNP control, media, whether it's Drudge. Of course, you could argue now the Drudge has completely gone off, or people, Fox News, for example, you could say CNP controlled to some degree. Newsmax, I mean, Christopher Ruddy was a Council for National Policy member, and now he supports the Clintons and went completely back. I mean, he wrote a book on the Vince Foster murder, and now he's completely gone back on it, supporting the Clinton Foundation and being like the Clintons didn't do anything wrong, and I was wrong about what I wrote about the murder of Vince Foster and the Clintons being involved in it. I mean, he's a multi-million-dollar donor to Clinton Foundation. How are you going to watch Newsmax? All the conservatives out there, listen to me. How are you going to watch Newsmax when Ruddy is completely in the pocket and in bed with the Clintons? Explain that one to me. You can't. You can't. It doesn't compute. And it sucks, because where are conservatives really truly going to get their news? I have no idea, because they're controlled by these limited hangout groups like the CNP and Los Raquel. And Kim Blackwell, he helped rig the 2004 election. Actually, the re-election.
I'm sorry, do you want to jump in there? I had talked with somebody about this that voted. It was a Republican that voted for John Kerry for the Democrat that year. He thinks Bush probably did pull it out, but it was not 100,000 votes. It was probably closer. It was like Florida level close in 2004, for what it's worth. Not to argue.
Yeah. But in 2004, the deciding state against Kerry for Bush was Ohio.
Right.
And so, Jacob Blackwell, former mayor of Cincinnati.
Exactly. Right.
I had to think about it for a minute. I'm not from Ohio, so I had to think about. I almost got Cincinnati, Cleveland confused there. Yeah. But former mayor of Cincinnati. I mean, there's the infamous photo op in the newspaper where he's wrestling a bear, right? And so Blackwell, he's a kingmaker. He assured through Dominion, through Diebold. Well, he had stake in Diebold, but through Dominion and ES&S, he assured that Bush won Ohio. Now, a lot of people are listening. They'll be like, well, John, did you want Kerry to win the presidency? And I'd say, well, they're both bonesmen. It doesn't matter who wins, we lose. Okay, let's be real here, people. All right. So, no, I mean, look, what am I supposed to say? They're all in on it. Kerry's an insider. Bush is an insider. You know, I mean, they're going to put one of their people in no matter what, right? So, I mean,
like second cousins, Bush and Kerry.
I think all the presidents except for one, and I can't remember which one is related to like the British royal family, including Obama. So I can't remember exactly which president isn't, but you know, it's just Blackwell. I mean, you have the supposedly alleged O'Connell assassination by CNP Karl Rove and CNP Blackwell, where Connell was working as an IT, you know, setting up all, you know, all this, you know, the election stuff for Blackwell and Rove, and then, you know, he was going to turn state's witness and go, you know, come against John Kenneth Blackwell, who, if I remember correctly, was Secretary of State of Ohio. And so, you know, Connor was going to try to turn state's witness against him, and then his private plane crashed.
December of 2008. And that's where people on the progressive side say that it's because Obama won so here's where it gets gray, because some of these figures start to took different sides in certain internal American political quarrels. And so it makes you think that they're working different agendas. What I mean by that is that, yes, Paul Manafort advised, was it Lukashenko in 2004? That's one of the first examples that you give of foreign usage of this Diebold technology in the Ukrainian election, and they link Lukashenko.
So Ukraine, yeah. You know,
and we'll come, and there's a reason for that. Then they link that to pro-Putin sentiment, but then on the conservative side, what they do is that Darren Beatty, who I like a lot of his work, but the color revolution thesis only gives you one side of it. It doesn't give you the whole picture. Yes, yes, there is regime change around the world, and they do cheat in elections. But that's, like you said, that's a cognitive bias. And what you've done, I feel like, is bring them together. Okay, yes, maybe Paul Manafort and Karl Rove supported Trump or didn't support Trump in 2016. That doesn't mean there's this big gulf. That doesn't mean they haven't been working for the same agenda behind the scenes for the last 30, 40 years. We've let people are so stuck in presentism to think that, oh gosh, well, they don't like each other anymore because they didn't vote for the same Republican candidate in 2016. I don't give a shit. Excuse my French, but that's and people let those little sleights of hand just render them totally useless in some of these mind games that the media and such play. And so, where do you think that takes us? And they're doing it again with the 2020 election thievery, in that Blackwell supported Stop the Steal. Karl Rove is still on Fox saying the math just wasn't there for Trump to win. So again, I was not even sure how, knowing that those guys are on different sides of this part of it, is that just another fake out?
In my opinion, yes, it's all a fake out. Yeah. I mean, you get Trump losing in 2020, and to show the world that elections are rigged, I mean, not duh. All right. You know, and I mean, even if they just use, you know, as my friend Billy Ray Valentine would say, even if they just use psychographical warfare like they used in Cambridge Analytica in 2016 to will the masses through mind control and through psychographical control, psychological psychographical control, you know, using their, you know, their data metrics of their personality, or, you know, likes or dislikes or fears or whatever, and driven, you know, America in a fever to vote for Biden, or at least appearance of voting for Biden and Trump, and whatever happened, whatever exactly happened with all that, they still put in whomever they want to put in, and that was Joseph Robinette Biden, who, I mean, is horrible. I mean, but at this point, I hate to say this, I do kind of feel just a little tinge of sorrow for him. It's a real little bit, because the man is not cognitively there.
No,
he's not. And so is it to them, for them to show the old world order and lay it bare to the world of how corrupt everything is, so that they can bring in a new world order? And in doing so, Trump will be at the helm, or someone else, are really propping up DeSantis. All right. And if you really dig deep on DeSantis, there's some weird connections between him and kind of like his wife and some biomedical groups, and maybe some COVID stuff going on, but that's another discussion.
Wasn't he a jag?
So yeah. So I mean, look, to me, none of these people, like, I've had to say, if someone might represent some of my beliefs from a Christian conservative standpoint, In Congress, it'd be Thomas Massey, but I mean he's long-term John Birch Society. JBS, he was at their I think it was 40th anniversary party. And so look, I mean, in my opinion, no one in Congress, no one in Washington, sadly, truly represents a true Christian conservative view. And it's quite sad. And I don't know if you feel that far, Quinton. Maybe I'm going a little bit too far in that, but I feel like that. And I feel like definitely when it comes to the presidency, I mean, again, you stop the steal. It was a grift and a cover. Okay. I mean, Ali Alexander, CNP member. I mean, again, there's something that is alleged, and it got a journalist, investigative journalist, thrown in local jail over this because the CNP threw their weight around. But allegedly, Karl Rove and Ali Alexander had a tryst, should I say, not a twist. So yeah.
I'll do you one better. I'm sorry, just bop the camera there. I'm very I've heard, that's not the first time I've heard. I'm very suspicious that John Weaver has some well, okay, I'll just say that Darren Beatty tweeted when John Weaver got outed for being a predator that Karl Rove, Frank Luntz, Dennis Hastert, and John McCain all have in common. Okay, now McCain, under my conditioning, I thought McCain was a strange addition to that foursome. Would you daddy issues, Weaver and McCain. I look back at, and a lot of this is intuitive, I'll grant you. Look at some of the pictures between Weaver and McCain from the 2000 election and tell me it doesn't give you chills.
Yeah, I mean, I've had George from cavdev.org to discuss McCain's connections to John Bonet through Fleet White. So it really does make a little bit sense when you add that into it. And then we know Hastert was involved in the CNP Franklin scandal.
Correct.
So yeah.
Well, and let's talk. Okay, let's take in. And I'd love if she's still alive, which I think she is. And I've heard some people that have Kay Griggs.
Yeah.
Okay. Telling what she told us about the Marine Corps and about how a lot of these military high ups get really into this. They're not Christians, they're German existentialists, and some of the like sodomy games they play.
Mm-hmm.
To think that McCain wouldn't have been groomed in those same circles, I don't think that's that outlandish at all.
No. And so, I mean, with Stop the Steal, it's a complete whitewash. It was just a grift just to get money and to put false hopium out there. I mean, they put whomever they want to put in power anyway. I do sadly think that Trump's going to return, which most people would knee jerk at that and be like, Biden's the worst thing in the world. How would you knee jerk at Trump's return? And I'm going to go, well, it's not Trump himself, really. It's the people behind Trump. And so, I mean, we're kind of screwed in any way you look at it. But it's always been that way.
When you follow when you play by their rules, so to speak, or try to follow their script, well, they're writing the script, so it's not ever going to be happy ending if we operate under those terms. What I mean by that is this Donnie Darko guy has a great account.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take it that far. I think when you understand that the Masonic or just the satanic ritualism behind the occult of trying to create the Antichrist to be, to arrive in our modern times, he thinks that there's a symbolism behind the beast falling and rising again, namely Trump. And so that gives me a little more context, or makes a little more understandable why they'd have Trump lose only to then run again.
I mean, I believe it could be Trump. It could be.
Yeah.
I think there's more evidence it's Trump than Obama.
Oh, for
especially
sure.
if the world order is laid bare and Trump comes out and he's like, see, I was telling you guys how evil and wicked everything is.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who the Antichrist is. We can go around and make a list of who, and I mean, only, God the Father knows exactly when Jesus Christ is going to return. I mean, I have no idea. But I will say that it's possible. I look at Donnie Darko's account and I'd love to interview him.
Me
And I
too.
find what he says very interesting. I don't know if I agree with it 100%. I'm always wary about gematria. I think it's Kabbalistic type tricks, and so I don't know if it's, I'm not gonna say that you can't gain knowledge there. I'm just saying that I don't know if the knowledge is really worth it, from the standpoint of using gematria. And I think a lot of people that completely focus on gematria end up losing their mind. It's kind of like a Jim Carrey. I think the movie was number 23 type aspect, where you kind of
Yeah.
lose your mind to the numbers. I think that was correct. But anyway, so so there's some things that he talks about gematria. I'm kind of like,
It like
but
rots your brain.
yeah, I'm not a fan of it. And so I don't know. I mean, look, Juna Blackwell is I mean, one thing that Cohn out, and I've always brought this to try to bring this to Jennifer's attention. I'm like, you do know that he's on like this kind of like bipartisan like election integrity board with that's funded by Open Society Foundation and George Open Society Foundation and George Soros, right? I'm like, you do know that, right? And then she I mean, there's even a tweet where I'm literally like, hey, look at this. You know this, right? Nothing, crickets. Because there's no, look, I mean, people ask me, John, why do you call out these conservatives? And I go, because they're conservatives. They're not conservatives. They're not conserving anything. They're con men. They're conservatives. That's all they're doing. And I'm not saying that every single person in the CNP, just like every single person in the CFR. Now, granted, most, I'm not going to agree with the CFR ideology, but like, the people that are lower level in the CFR, they're progressive liberal ideology. They think they're doing good, and it's the same people lower levels at the CNP are probably good Christian conservative people that, that are, pro-life, that are anti-gay marriage, that are anti-legal immigration. They probably have those ideals, but they really don't know what the top of these organizations are doing. They don't know what the top of the CNP was involved in. I mean, whether it's the Iran-Contra affair, whether it's the Franklin scandal, whether it's 9/11, both parts of both halves, you can almost say the Project New American Century, half of it was CNP, half of it was CFR. Whether it's Stop the Steal, like you mentioned, or the kind of false pushback on the COVID narrative that was astroturfed by the CNP DeVos family and the CNP Mercers and everything that was kind of funded by them, the CNP Cokes, and it didn't really go anywhere. Nothing really happened through it,
And
So
I'm trying to interview your friend, or you posted some of his work that did all the stuff with Robert Malone and Bruce Ivins and the
Mark, yes, yes.
Mark. And there's I mean, Malone is a total controlled opposition figure. If I've ever seen the Dos Equis guy, I mean, I hate to say it, but people like that don't just come out of the woodwork. One Rogan, I wouldn't trust a lick either. Because didn't that how he went viral because he was a guest on Rogan's podcast. Yeah, I didn't watch it because I don't trust Joe at all. But that's, you kind of enlightened me into how even, all those people are. And then you posted something about that unified with Jason Shurka, who I've seen some of his work. He seems like a really nice kid. But this goes back to all this new, his first week on his program, he gets Ike and Bobby Kennedy Jr. as guest. Oh, that's casual. Okay. Well, lucky guy you are. Again, hey, I'm sure I've been accused of being a spook because I booked Ann Coulter. It doesn't mean because you book famous people that you're a spook. I'm not saying that. I think you know where I'm going with that. But you have to know the background.
I think it's less likely that you booked Ann than booking RFK Jr. and David Icke in the same program, Quinton. I will say that, however, Ann probably has connections to the CNP if you're listening, Ann. But yeah, I think it's way far less. It's not like you brought Tucker Carlson on, okay? Then that would be like...
It's funny when you bring up these kinds of questions to her, she says, like when I said that, I had a friend that corrected me because I said that I thought Stephen Miller was one of the biggest ringleaders of QAnon, and we can get into Michael Aquino. You're very big on McChrystal. I thought it was more. I'm not saying
no. Miller's got a hand in it. I'm not saying that.
But you were more on I thought it was Paul E. Valley which we can get into him too. But my friend actually said within the White House, who they thought the ringleader was Ezra Cohen Watnick.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Okay.
And
anyway,
Ezra Cohen Watnick is under Flynn.
That the point being that Anne always says, she was like, I guess I take Occam's razor. I thought Miller's ego. I said, Anne, what do you mean he wanted the credit? That's why so if he just got stuck on the credit, then he's nowhere near as smart as you thought he was. That's for me, that's too simplistic an explanation.
Yeah. I mean, your interview with Ann Coulter you got more out of her than any interview I've ever heard. So
really?
I mean, at least stuff that I found interesting. I mean, and I know you, if you ever listen to this, I know you're regret and Trump we trust. I read it back in 2016, I have to admit. But the whole Q thing, man, I thank God I never fell for that. I mean, you could probably say I got close and was probably buying in. I mean, for a while, I followed Jordan Sather. I mean, really early. I remember playing. It was whenever Breath of the Wild came out on the Wii, right when the Switch came out. I was playing it on the Wii U. I hadn't had a Switch yet, so I would have. I don't remember exactly when Breath of the Wild came out, but it was around then. I was watching Jordan Sather some, and I was like, I don't know if this guy's a little bit too out there with the space stuff, and I was still a Gnostic back then too. I wasn't born again. I don't know, man. The Q stuff is just, there's so many people involved in it.
Yep.
And we'll never know who truly all they were involved in it. But I mean, McChrystal was he's kind of Flynn's puppeteer. Flynn's involved. Miller, yes, of course.
Flynn's puppeteer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense because McChrystal, it seems like he's been in the background. You do great. I'll link to it in the description. You do great stuff on Stanley McChrystal and how he kind of, the whole Rolling Stone thing 12 years ago, it was kind of like, what do we call it? Performance art? What the hell was that? Yeah.
I mean, I guess you mean as far as McChrystal getting fired or whatever. But I mean, Hastings really did out him. I mean, he outed the whole. If more people would have read the operators, we probably may not have been. The QAnon operation may not have worked.
Wow.
If enough people in the conspiracy movement would have read the operators, because I remember, I kind of dismissed Hastings. And I was like, he was assassinated, but I never really looked into him. And I even dismissed the McChrystal stuff. And then I read the operators and I was like, I was like, this is everything. Like, this is it, and then we get the disclosure from, Bergey's research that Connell and Manafort and was all with IIA programs, that was kind of like the precursor to Cambridge Analytica and the precursor to QAnon, and look, I mean, obviously, what was the name of the movie that Miller Weaver did? Do you remember? What was it? Shadowgate. Shadowgate was mostly a limit hangout, even though Bergey's work is still like, Bergey still believes in Trump. I don't know why, but Patrick, he's done a lot of good research. I have to commend him on that. He's right about a lot. I mean, he was right about outing Jim Jones and the whole Jones nexus into these psychological operations and stuff. But they mentioned when they listed the characters of people that were involved, right, with all this, they did have Stanley McChrystal on the list, but then they said one thing about him and then kind of just that was it. Yeah. I think that was more Millie Weaver and Gavin Wentz's dealings. Definitely more than was Bergey, but
the same. John Swin of Expose the Enemy. I think
yes, I do follow John. I'm very appreciative of his work.
Me too. I'd love to interview him. I noticed he's not quite as doesn't have as big a blind spot as Jennifer does, but I will say that they focus a lot on the Trump and the mafia connections and back to the Russian mafia. Hmm? And what I mean, why that's relevant is that their QAnon stuff is great. That those kind of graphs or those infographics that he makes are so brilliant, and they're very they offer you a coherent picture of what he's talking about. But he doesn't. Once you understand that Bush world and Trump world really aren't that far apart. I don't care about the polemic. I don't care what Jeb or Trump say to each other on the debate stage. Yes, because the same people that crafted the Iraq War WMDs, Paul E. Valley, we're the same architects of this psyop of QAnon. And once you stop trying to think, wait a minute, but Bush and Trump and this, like that keeps
it was WWE. It was WWE.
Yes.
It made people like me go, oh man, you know, I mean, as someone who grew up loving pro wrestling, I was like, this is, dude, Trump's really, you know, sticking it to the deep state, you know, this is awesome. And then, you know, he tweeted that tweet of wrestling of CNN getting clothesline, right? And then that went viral and that made people think that Trump was really our guy. Not to go off on a tangent, but like, it is so masterful of how they just mind control people into a cult of worshiping Trump. Like it's outright evil. Do not get me wrong, but at the same time, I'm in awe. You know, I mean, I fell for it.
I would say the Trump, they cling to him like when he's, you know, when he's our champion. It's less like messianic. I think
no, there's a messianic complex with Trump.
You think so?
Oh, wow. Yes. I've seen numerous memes of them comparing him to Jesus Christ. I mean, Mo Brooks said it was a second coming. When he announced Trump, he said it's the second coming of Donald Trump. I mean, you don't get no more messianic than that. And then you had at CPAC where they literally built a golden idol of Trump with him holding a magic wand. Okay.
I did see that.
That was at CPAC. And so you have many pictures of people like there's a picture of like Trump as Jesus telling people to have faith and walk on water. Like it's everywhere. I mean, I could send you, you know, stuff of it's all out there. I mean, I'm in all these Q groups, you know, on Telegram, just watching them, and it's blasphemic stuff, man. It's bad. I mean, even you can look at the Chabad network and, you know, Trump being the reincarnation of Cyrus the Great, you know, to them and stuff, and kind of being a messianic figure to the Jews as well. I mean, it exists there too, you know. It's I don't know, man. It's bizarre, but I mean, look, I didn't. Maybe this stuff existed with Obama, but you know, I remember, you know, Obama, you know, giving me all this stuff. You know, he's great. He's really looking out for me. You know, I remember all that stuff, but I don't remember as much as I'm seeing with the idolization of Trump, as far as from a messianic standpoint, being there with Barack. You know, like Barack was going to save the country in many people's eyes, yes, but I don't think that he was to many people, the second coming of Jesus Christ. But you see that motif out there. I mean, it's strong.
You know, you're right. Well, and I underestimate it only because a lot of people, Obama fans, don't believe in God to begin with, so you can't. But when you get you have the Antichrist has to fool Christians. It wouldn't matter. It doesn't need to fool those that are already, and it's very tricky because like we just said about, I think John McCain was a satanic motherfucker, and I have no qualms about saying that. And look at the sociopath he created. And Megan, I'm not joking either. I'm being very serious. I mean, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And there's just some behavior about the disassociative identity, just that you once you've been researching this stuff as long as we have, you can't help but notice. And why I bring that up, that it's not that sometimes the demons do get in quarrels among themselves. Am I right?
That's true. Yes. I'm not going to say that the world order between I look at it as like an eagle. So you have the left wing of the eagle and the right wing of the eagle, but it's still an eagle.
Right.
And so, you know, but that doesn't, you know, and I believe that the world orders, who they really answer to is Satan. Okay. But it doesn't mean they're like you can look at them almost like a mafioso too. And that when the Don or the Godfather, which is Satan, and you probably have the people directly under the Godfather, which would be like your ruling, very elite families. Maybe some of them we've never even heard of, breakaways, you know, elite, you know, but, you know, but you do have fights. You would have fights between the mob, right? You know, I mean, they would come together, but you would still have fights within the mob for jockeying for power. You'd still have, you know, fights between the different mob families themselves. And so it's kind of like that in a lot of ways. But there are certain things that when the Godfather, Satan, says to jump, they say how high, you know. So there are some things that they're total agreement on that they won't waver. Now, we can only speculate what those things may be. But I say when it comes, and it might even be, you know, me and Billy used to talk about this. Maybe for president, they really just do like a dollar trading places bet, you know, and they're like, we put both of our candidates up and whoever wins, it really doesn't matter. Good luck to you.
Could
you know?
be. I mean, that's what, yeah. I mean, the Bush, and I would say like the Bush and Kerry, back to that, is a really good example of, because I couldn't figure out the rhyme or reason how both, like how they choose one. Okay, you go back on the bench, you go out and play. Like and I'm not sure. Have you figured it out quite yet?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that they just go, you guys put up your both candidates that represent us and do whatever you can to win. And whoever wins, you have power for this certain amount of time. Okay. Unless they really need to put somebody in like George H.W. Bush, who I believe is a very strong insider. George W. Bush is kind of a dopey puppet. I mean, George H.W. Bush, on the other hand, and then you got Dick Cheney too. I mean, Dick Cheney backed Trump in 2020. And then now he's on an about face, and all the liberals are like, oh, he's joined the rebel alliance against Trump and the January 6th Commission and Liz Cheney. And, that stuff made me sick, man. As I'm sure it did make you sick on Twitter, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, you guys used to like say how evil Dick Cheney is, and trust me, I mean, I call Dick Cheney Emperor Palpatine, all right? CNP Dick Cheney, I call him Emperor Palpatine. I mean, he's evil as impossible. The man's got he's missing a biological heart, okay? Like he's not, like there's something wrong with the man, all right? And so again, like you mentioned, you're right about this. It's all, in my opinion, and some people would say this is a Gnostic way to look at it. In my opinion, a lot of it is already done by the elite, and a lot of it is theater to the masses. Ultimately God is sovereign. Some people could say that the reason why we have Biden for president is judgment against the United States of America, of all the idolization of Trump and the falling away of Christians, kind of like into this new apostolic reformation, kind of like charismatic, kind of going off beliefs, because when you look at the Q movement and Trump, I mean, Trump steered Christians into new apostolic reformation, into what is the name? I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. Christians that start following the Jewish traditions.
Judaizers?
Yes, but there's another name for them too. But Judaizers, for the sake of Hebrew roots. Hebrew roots, that was rife in the QAnon community. So you have Hebrew roots, you have New Apostolic Reformation, New Age beliefs were rife in the QAnon community. So it was kind of pushing people into this. I mean, you have Catholics who think that Archbishop Vigano, the Love and Light New World Order Pope, is going to save the Catholic Church. And I'm like, well, Vigano covered up pedophilia, if you really dig in, just as much as Ratzinger did. So, like, what, this doesn't make any sense, So it's, I mean, you heard Michael Flynn do his Gnostic theosophical prayer, ripping off Elizabeth Clare Prophet at Hagee's church, right?
Oh, that was, I mean, and I wonder again, sometimes, like, who broke that? Was it Rick Wiles? I don't know him that well, but I think I remember that's
True News. Yeah.
Yes, that he's the first person that tweeted about it that I saw. That's where I think they want to kind of, the law of karma. If they tell you what they're doing, you can't get pissed about it. So their approach to life goes. And
they're sick of law of karma. I guess they call it the Blavatsky called it the revelation of the method.
Exactly. Yes, and Michael Hoffman, who I don't really trust these days.
Yeah, Hoffman, I'm kind
of very into very full, but he tries to, I don't want to get into him too much, but just he tweeted something about, the racism of the Talmudic Jews, and if they're really for BLM. I'm like, no, Dr. Hoffman, BLM is a Talmudic creation in and of itself. You're not going to, you can't beat these people by playing by their rules. That only strengthens their game more so. And I kind of refuse to believe somebody that as bright as him doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've heard Hoffman on William Ramsey a few times, and I've never really cared for him, and so, I mean, some of the stuff he said, I'm like, fine, whatever, I mean, I believe that's what a lot of the Q movement is, I mean, they wrote books like, QAnon, 1,000 Years of Peace, that kind of ushering in the millennial reign, and Trump is going to be the one to do so. I mean, it's blasphemic stuff like that, man. It's make you like, it's like, there's only so, and yeah, I've covered Barbara Marx Hubbard on my channel extensively and everything. And, and she's kind of, she's kind of like the elite figure. I mean, she was her father, Louis Marx, was a financier for the Bush family. I mean, that's how much money he had. He was a toy king, so, I mean, that's one thing I could talk about ad nauseum, is how the Council for National Policy appears to be Christian, but in reality, they're funding. I mean, they're rife of New Agers. They're rife of people who claim to be Christian that aren't. I mean, Rod D. Martin, who claims he's a Christian, but he's a futurist, and he's the godfather of the PayPal mafia of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. I mean, he had a book that was there was a play on the New American Century, but I can't remember exactly what the name of it was offhand. But in that book, the reviews that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel wrote for him were like, like literally like, this man is like the man to them. But no one's ever heard of him. But he was a member of the inner circle of the CNP that's supposedly now defunct, called the Arlington Group. And this man calls himself a futurist, but he's a Christian. And I'm not saying that we have to be Luddites. I'm talking to you on a computer, using a microphone, using a wired internet, internet over power line. But like, there's a, like, how far are we going to go with this technology? Like, when are we going to say enough is enough, that this is Lucifer's technologies, to steal a little bit from a line from Christopher Knowles, right? And to realize that this is, it comes at a cost. Like, what is going to be the line? Is the metaverse going to be the line? Like, where's the line going to be, for conservatives and Christians, like, where's our line going to be where we're like, this is too much?
Because the Eurasian plan, and I'm not saying the Anatolian Golitsyn, I think his name is, the perestroika deception. You make the West as satanic and unpalatable as possible, and then the nationalist spirit rises, and then the American people themselves want to destroy the empire that's held them captive.
That's what's happening.
That gives way to the multipolar world, and then the technocracy, and that's the where you have China and Russia. And so I guess their thinking is that the technocratic autocracy is more effective in a multipolar world order.
I mean, Dugan is fine with cyborgs as long as they're Russian cyborgs.
I've said, anybody who falls for his shit these days, I mean, it's just, and that's what, and they're almost not even hiding it anymore. Like, Cernovich tweeted something out. No, that was a Gurdjieff thing. I don't know.
Tucker's telling people to go read Dugan. I mean,
no, has he?
Yes, there's a clip of him telling people. I'll have to find it. I'll do a short Tucker expose playing that clip where he's literally talking about the Russian military being better than the woke American military. Okay, look, I have problems with the LGBTQT and the whole and women on the front lines and stuff like that and everything. Like, come on, let's be real here, okay? But like, to sit here and be like, well, Russia's military is different with their conscription, and everybody should go read Dugan. That's pretty much what he's talking about there. I'm like, yeah, okay, bud. It's like
the Kabbalah bracelet.
Kabbalah bracelet wearing Tucker.
When people say who they are, believe them. And so on that front, then what I can see how it's all. And okay, how do you think? Because Drudge is really pushing the DeSantis Trump rivalry,
and Third Temple stuff too.
Pardon me?
Third Temple stuff too.
Drudges?
He's constantly doing news stories on Third Temple.
Sounds about right. Well, and so I don't see how, and Ann is a big fan of DeSantis, and I like a lot of things that he does too. Something just intuitively in me does not, because you and I are on another level. I hate to say it, not to be snobbish, but we're not talking about primary campaigns here. Mm-hmm. Something about me does not believe that DeSantis is gonna disrupt their plan with Trump.
Yeah, I got to go back. Days of Noah did some excellent research on DeSantis's wife. I need to go back and dig that up and give him all the credit. Is that her
name? Casey is her name, I think.
No, Days of Noah is African American male. He's a Christian.
I'm sorry, Casey DeSantis. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, her name.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes. And so he did excellent research. I got to go back. I mean, I mean, look, DeSantis, there's numerous photo ops of him with Chabad. Okay. I mean, he is, training, bringing Israel to train, Florida civil servants, I mean, like, look, DeSantis is, and look, as a Christian conservative, I'm not going to say that what these people, I agree with some of the stuff they say, but they're a snake, like Trump reading that snake poem, right? It's not about illegal immigration. Trump's literally telling you he is a snake. And you'll bring him in and take care of him and he will bite you. So, I mean, it's the same with any of these people. It doesn't matter who they are, And so, like, yeah, DeSantis going after Disney and pulling, their tax, exempt status or benefits in Florida. Who isn't? As a conservative or Christian who, should not be for that, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, but they're all dog whistles and who knows if they even come to fruition or not. I mean, something I'm going to start reading on my, channel is one of the early books that Peter Schweitzer wrote, which you can't find anymore. It's called Disney the Mouse Betrayed. And so Schweitzer, I get he's CNP connected. I understand that. Well,
Sure.
I mean, I get it. All right. But this is one of the earliest books he's read. Now there is one part here, and interestingly enough, published by Regnery Publishing, which I think when this book was released, Regnery had already sold their publishing company, if I remember correctly, to Salem Media Group, with CNP control, Regnery CNP. But I mean, I don't know. I think it was around the 90s, maybe not, maybe so. But the interesting thing about this book, and one thing I disagree with Peter on, is he talks about how Disney kind of lost its way.
Do you believe
Lost what way? Disney's been corrupted when it was founded by Walt Disney.
Okay, okay, I see where you're going. Okay, so I was wondering because oh gosh, help me. Springmeyer.
Fritz Springmeyer.
Fritz Springmeyer, who looks like how do you go to jail and your eyes change colors?
That's a discussion. That's a discussion.
And he's been very like, oh, now the New World Order. Well, again, he's very like, oh, maybe the New World Order can be good. Maybe they've seen the light. But I didn't ever go into, not because I don't believe it. I never read his Disney stuff about Trump, or I'm sorry, about Walt being a sicko. Not saying it's right or wrong. I just never read that part. So it sounds like you're of that persuasion.
I am of that persuasion. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, think about it. You don't get as big as Disney. I mean, Disney started as World War II American propaganda against the Nazis. I mean, it started as a propaganda house.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess, propaganda for the Allies is always good, right? I mean, look at Radio Free America, Radio Free Europe. I'm making a joke, okay? Like, look, like to me, the same way I look at World War II is the Axis powers and the Allies powers got war atrocities that they both need to answer for, okay? So, I mean,
there's a big thing on Gab. And again, like I love just talking with you because we're both so immersed in this stuff that we don't have to do all our homework and we can bounce off each other. The Eisenhower and the German genocide. Do you know where I'm going with this?
No, I mean, yeah, they carpet bomb civilians.
Yeah.
Both sides were committing war atrocities. It's what happens in war, and I'm not excusing either side. I'm not saying, I mean, think about it. If we really look at it from a standpoint, was Hitler really fighting against the world order? There's some evidence that Hitler may have been in a pocket of the Rothschilds and just doing what he's supposed to do for the formation of Israel. All right. I mean, come on. Okay. So, I mean, I don't think the way I look at it is the same thing I look at revolutions, even the American Revolution. It's a changing of the guard to put whatever they want in power. In the war, what happens in war? People die, guards are changed, and the population suffers. And they shift the world of however they want to shift the world. I mean, to me, Allies, I know some people will say the world would have been better off if Hitler would have won. I don't agree with that.
Who says that?
There are a lot, white nationalists would.
Oh, I mean, Richard Spencer, I mean, I don't have any time for him. I don't have, I guess, I mean, most white nationalists, I think, are civ nat shills anyway. So I mean, they say a lot of crazy shit.
But I mean, or they'll say Hitler, the Nazi Party, fought for Christendom. That's not true. They used Christendom as a means to an end. I mean, you know, when you research the Mountain Jews, you know, the Nazis went down there and they started, you know, killing some of the Mountain Jews, and then the Mountain Jews were like, "Hold on, we're Aryan, we're Jews," and then so they stopped, and then the Mountain Jews, supposedly, if you believe in their lore, went back to Hitler and taught him a lot of their occult practices. So I mean, you know, a lot of white nationalists are kind of revisionism of someone like William Regnery II, National Policy Institute, Richard Spencer, the Regnery family, CNP. All right, they're going to whitewash and say all those things, right? But at the same time, they're going to be like, well, what, you support the crimes of FDR and you know, Woodrow Wilson? And I'm like, well, no, they did horrific things too. It's what war is. I mean, they put Japanese Americans and Italian Americans. No one ever talks about the Italian Americans, and they seized asset of the Italian Americans and put them in concentration camps. Okay, so I mean, there's war atrocities on war is hell. Is hell. Right. And a lot of people give Stalin a pass because he was on the Allies side. Stalin killed upwards of, I don't know how many Christians, tens of millions of Russian Christians. You know, I mean, no one, you can't have a nuanced discussion about this anymore because anybody gets triggered. Anybody gets triggered. The moment you say the Allies bomb civilian targets in Berlin, what, you support Hitler? No. The moment you say, you know, I'm trying to think of one for the Allies. The moment you would say that you know, that Hitler committed war atrocities against the Jews, what, you support the Allies, you know, or you support the complete Holocaust narrative, you know, and it's like World War II is muddied, but most people either want to say that Woodrow Wilson or FDR comes out smelling like roses or Hitler comes out smelling like roses, you know, and it's like, no, they were horrible people, as in all wars. The same with Mussolini, and the same with Winston Churchill. They all committed war atrocities, every single one of them. So I mean,
I'm convinced. Well, here's what the David Dukes and the Lyndon LaRoucheites, they try to your everything you said is correct, but trying to cast America as this Masonic experiment that was the new Atlantis, and then making Christians and if they call, or people, even like you said, the white nationalists appealing to Christendom, which I don't buy for a minute. They would say, "Oh, see, America deserves to be destroyed." As Tim Fitzpatrick of the Fitzpatrick Informer says, "No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
That's
America
not cool.
Does not deserve to be destroyed."
No. And I mean, we live here.
Yes.
I mean, you don't think other countries have not committed, you know, atrocities as well? I mean, everybody should be held accountable at that point. I mean, yeah, if you want to put out everybody up on war crimes as the leader of a nation, sure, go right ahead. You know, I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think that would end up being good in the long run because the leader's still in control. But like, if we're having, you know, fantasies here, you know, and it really is trips to Gitmo, then yeah, Biden deserves to go for war atrocities, but so does Trump.
So the Hague is said, and I wonder, I'm curious if the United Nations and I don't know if it was you who said counterfeit money is physically real, like the world order.
No, that wasn't me.
Okay,
that's interesting though.
It's interesting. So meaning that the new world order, or what is it? Was it Dugan or said the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening?
Yeah, no, I've talked about that.
Yes, that's what. Okay, I mean, the counterfeit money is, you can hold it in your hand. It is physically there, but it's not. It doesn't have any like assets or energy behind it. That's real. That's how I view like the United Nations, the Hague, the ICC, the world order of that. It kind of embodied by Papa Bush, if you will, HW, that Trump is claiming to want to destroy. That's real, but it's like the precursor. It's not the real. I mean, you have another boss of the video game. Next level is the real bad guy, and so that and back to like the Unified channel. Did you read Miles Mathis at all?
Yeah, but the whole everything is. I do believe in the concept of death fakers. I don't know exactly who misfaked their death. We can we can sit around and postulate, but okay, go ahead. I mean, I'm not going to say I completely disagree with everything Miles Mathis said.
Oh, well, sometimes his conclusion, I like his approach intellectually and just his eye for catching things. Do I agree with his conclusions? No, I don't. And some things especially when it gets some of the historical, I just, it takes me some time to download. But Kabbalah is one of the original intelligence operations. And so some of this new agey stuff, like he thinks like even the tarot was developed it was financed by the Medicis in that part of Italy and during the Renaissance, and that they were trying to inject, like, rival the Catholic Church with this emerging with, the occultism that of the Renaissance. And so to see, this, and I'm not accusing this Jason Shirker guy of anything, but just to see all these names of people that we're very dubious of and to be injected with so much. And he had a book that came out about this this man who had been alive for 400 years and he went by Rabbi AA or something. What Miles says, when you understand that the esoteric and the intelligence operations have always, of the Phoenicians, as he calls them, or some call, maybe the Phoenicians were one of the tribes of Israel, who knows? It really shouldn't surprise you. Do you get where I'm going with that?
I mean, I've heard of it. I can't really comment. I mean, I could look at it from a Duganist standpoint, and that you have the seafaring people and you have the land people, and some people have said the Phoenicians were the seafaring people. Right. I could talk about that, I guess. The Medicis, I don't know. I think the tarot has been around longer than that, in my opinion, but I could be wrong. Dugan's straight up evil, and Bannon's evil.
Look at him. Look, so use your intuition. This is harsh, but look at Dugan. Do you get a good feeling?
No.
Duh.
And I mean, but that's what we're given, though. That's what we're given, Quinton. We're given Bannon or Dugan. Choose your nationalist traditionalist.
Bannon just needs a shower. I mean, I don't know if he looks evil, but he looks like, okay, dude, are you gonna get a shower before you go on TV? Would it kill you?
I don't know. I know allegedly running that porn and meth house is probably and then Bannon's connections. Did you ever watch my video on CNP Stephen K. Bannon by chance?
No, I tried. I got through a lot of them.
I need to send it to you.
Oh, please do.
Bannon's connections to like Mark Collins Rector and Brock Pierce, and just like, he was, head of Cambridge Analytica with Mercer. Bannon is just.
Oh, Lee Stranahan, who is a little tight with Russian TV for me, or he just he put a pro-Russian flag again, and Lee
Stranahan's previous, let's say, allegedly working in the porn industry.
Lee did too?
Yeah, allegedly, yeah.
I shouldn't laugh. Well, okay, so
I feel bad for Lee having strokes. Like, I hope he comes to Jesus and has, I really do. Lee being against Jeff Giza. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Jeff Giza either. Okay, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's just what I was thinking about Stranahan. So.
What's his position to? I think he's right to out guys like Chiza, Cernovich,
Giza, Cernovich, yep, Posobiec,
and Bannon, because I believe him what he said about them. I don't know what his deal is.
Exactly. Where's his allegiance with? Is his allegiance? Did Dugan and Bannon have a little bit of a fight? Does Lee answer to Dugan?
Oh,
we know that Alex Jones answers to Dugan,
like a lover
in Constantine Malafiev. So, and Tegrasad TV, among others. I mean, there's numerous people that Alex Jones answers to. Zionists, definitely some Jesuit connections, CIA, whomever. But CNP, Alex Jones, CNP member. But Stranahan being so much of a Russophile, and I'm not against the Russian people. Just like I'm not against the people of anybody, any country. But the Russian government is corrupt as the day is long. I mean, Putin is very much in tight with Chabad. And I think he LARPs as Orthodox Christian. I mean, he's former KGB. I mean, the dude is dirty as it can get. All right. And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing. Like you talk about Ukraine.
Yeah.
They're nowhere. Like I pray for the Ukrainian people. And I pray for the Russian conscripts, the Russian soldiers, because they're forced into it. They're forced into it. I mean,
Right.
I feel bad. I mean, Ukraine is getting raped. It's getting raped. And for what?
They
and
want
for what?
Here's Rachel Maddow's view of Russia is not a real, it's what do we say, it's like a LARP's not the right word. What do we say? It's like a
limited hangout control.
Yeah, or it's like a straw. It's a false impression of Russia. Again, LARPing as the Russian Orthodox patriarchs are corrupt. The Russian mafia, and never does she get to the KGB. Never does she get to the infrastructure that really never went away. It just changed hands, and so that's where again you end up hating the Russian people, the Goyim, as they want, and or not you, but like American liberals, they want Russian people to die. And that just serves more humanity on humanity violence. And so the cycle just continues. And that just, it never gets to the power source. And so again, that's where Expose the Enemy, I get a little concerned that they cite anything from Rachel, because I'm usually more open-minded, but I think she's a wretched human being.
Well, I mean, who gave us Rachel Maddow? Tucker Carlson.
Who was it?
Tucker Carlson.
How so?
Because he introduced the world to Rachel Maddow.
Oh my God.
They both were working for MSNBC at the time. Now get this. Who did Rachel Maddow usually have a segment with? CNP
right.
Pat Buchanan. She used to call it It's Pat, the Jesuit Pat Buchanan. Imagine that. Imagine that Tucker Carlson is a reason why we have Rachel Maddow, at least on appearances. Okay. And Rachel Maddow, the stalwart progressive liberal that she is, would have the racist Jesuit Pat Buchanan on? I'm a little bit confused there. Oh, wait, they're all in and out of together? Imagine that.
Wow. You're right. The first time I saw her was Tucker's old MSNBC program 15 years ago. I hadn't ever thought, I'd forgotten about that. Well, because he's been through all the networks. So
I mean, Tucker's a Swanson. I mean,
through his stepmother. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Swanson heir.
So what happened to Tracy Twyman?
Ooh, you want to get there? You want to go there, huh?
Well, because so her mentor, Nicholas DeVere, he was the Dragon Bloodline guy. A lot of similar stuff to that Lawrence Gardner, who all these names, who accused David Icke accused Lawrence Gardner and William F. Buckley of being shape-shifting pedophiles. The pedophile part, okay, that could possibly be real.
Yes,
So the point, DeVere always thought like Icke was just a new age buffoon, which he was. And so again, Tracy had a lot of great stuff. But DeVere died in very similar circumstances. I guess both of them, I'm not sure I believe that they were victimized for telling the truth. There's just something about me that just.
I know a little bit more about Tracy that I can't say publicly.
Okay.
But I can say off air.
All right.
I could say that you are incorrect.
I'm incorrect? Okay. Even about,
about Tracy.
Okay. Yeah. I shouldn't have brought DeVere. He's been dead for about 9 years. So that was a while ago at this point. Would you rather not go there? That's fine if you don't.
No, I mean, I could talk about some things. My biggest concern still is, why did Tracy go to the FBI with the information she found? But the information she found was solid. She did find codes for human trafficking and embedded in YouTube videos. I mean, Elsagate shows it. I mean, yeah, really, anybody who's been on YouTube that has kids, and don't let your kids use YouTube. Okay, unless you were like a hawk. All right, I've done a video on it. It is a dark, disgusting debaucherous place. So she did find what appeared to be legitimate child trafficking websites and data, a lot of it being pushed by rappers in the trap scene. And that's true. I mean, those videos, they don't exist anymore. Some people could say watching them is like the movie The Ring.
Oh, ugh. Oh God.
Not what the
Gross.
videos are in, not the videos, but what happens to someone when they watch the videos.
Like they get sucked into that?
They die or they get sucked in. Yes, one or the other. They either lose their minds or they die.
Have you watched it? You don't have to answer.
Watch parts. I don't know why. I mean, did Tracy have some proclivities to mental illness? Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, see, I wasn't.
Most researchers do, to some degree. I guess you could say what depends on your Myers-Briggs personality type, where you're on the spectrum, you know.
Yeah.
And she's talked about that.
Okay.
But I do believe that she was getting digitally harassed. I believe her story. I wish I could go into more than what I am speaking of now. I can only say this. I believe I know where Tracy Twyman ended up when she left this earth.
And it sounds like that's your tone kind of went up. So it seems like there's a happiness there.
Yes.
Okay.
As a Christian, I believe I know where she hopefully went.
Well, there's a lot of contentment in that statement. So,
and I do believe that she is dead. She might not be, but I do believe that she is dead.
Well, that's where, frankly, Miles wears me out because what's he want to, he thinks Breitbart got relocated to South America.
Sure.
Could be.
CNP Breitbart. I mean, sure.
That's totally, but, and he says that they used to relocate people to Tunisia in European Christendom or to,
Epstein's on island somewhere.
Yeah. It's the point again, anyway, but that approach gets exhausting. People do live, people do die. We don't live forever. It's not, I don't care. There's the transhumanism, death is real. It's not a psyop. I just say that because I'm with you. That's where the Miles approach kind of runs.
It's very Gnostic in that train of thinking. And I'm not going to say it's not true. I'm not going to say that they don't have death fakers. Okay, they do. But if everything is, that's a very Gnostic worldview that we live in assimilation and nothing really matters. If it's all quote unquote a grand play, the world's a stage. And I know I say it from time to time, but I do believe that. I mean, I believe that Matthew North's dead. I don't have a death certificate in front of me, or there wasn't an obituary. Some weird instances, but we have verification of Jesse Spots calling his brother, and his brother's Facebook page mourning Matthew. So I believe Matthew North is deceased. God rest his soul. So I mean, some people don't think he's dead. Okay, but I believe he is. I believe Tracy Twyman's dead too.
I think Madeleine Albright's dead.
Me too as well.
Yeah,
she's also that old.
She's 84. I think Colin Powell's dead for real. I think Rumsfeld's dead for real.
Kissinger will never die because he's that evil. He might be Satan might be in his body like a meat puppet, for all we know. So.
I would.
I'm joking about that. He will die. And he will face judgment, but
could be. Oh God. Well, it's so gross. He's the worst. So on that, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to shift a little bit because I want to be very respectful of what you said you didn't want to talk about on air. So I'm trying to shift.
If you have any questions, I will talk about what I can. I just don't want to break confidence of people who put their trust in me.
Right, and that's why. I'm so appreciative, and it makes you. And I just, even though we didn't know each other before today, I could just tell that you were just, that's the kind of character you have.
And I mean, I had my own interactions with Tracy.
Okay.
You know, I've talked. I mean, there's a higher side chat talking episode you can go back. I mean, the whole Greg Carwood thing. You know, I try not to bring it up much anymore. But you know, I've talked about some of it. You know, I can say this: Tracy Twyman left Ground Zero, and you know, I go back and forth on Clyde. But allegedly, it was because she wanted to go public with this information, and Clyde supposedly, allegedly, there was a woman who was in the OTO that started speaking bad about Tracy. And that led to Clyde's decision in not having Tracy on. And that made Tracy so angry at her. And she later did forgive Clyde, supposedly. But that angered Tracy so much that she left Ground Zero as producer.
Wow. Makes sense though. Okay. And so, well, then what was she just at that point in her journey, the Judas goat, the books, the nature of her research, the Anunnaki lines, you know, not everybody who's into that is a government shill. That's where, I mean, a lot of people are that push, or maybe they're just spiritually deluded. I
believe at one time she was spiritually deluded, demonically possessed and or oppressed, and likely possessed, and did automatic writing.
Like animated by, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not all of it. Some of it was her own thoughts and beliefs, and some of what she wrote, there is some truth to it.
Well, that's where the Islam is like the original. I mean, it's one of the first ever, you know, very similar to the story in heresy that the crucifixion was that it was faked.
That's the Gospel of Barnabas. That's where they took from.
That, and because I mean, it's the Quran. It's like cut and pasted from the Nestorian view, all the Manichaeanism, like that. None of it was original. That's where. Sure. And so just when I was perusing some of her work, okay, but that doesn't mean she didn't. And that does. Where was she in her faith journey? That's a really hard question, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Because
like I said, and all I will say is I am not in distress of where I believe Tracy Twyman ended up when she died.
Okay, wow, that's pretty powerful. And there's a website, Corey's his name, the Phoenix Enigma, and he gets really into, he's done a lot of good work regarding Tracy. Isaac Cappy, I had my doubts only because Corey, a lot of his material is dedicated to, he thinks Fiona Bartlett is like a gatekeeper, or is like a limited hangout, only in the sense that logistically Nixon and Billy Graham and Nicole Kidman's father. Okay, lady, you didn't go, just it's meant to help victims come forward and then bind the energy. And like, lady, you didn't go around all the rapists in 24 hours. That's logistically not
the
possible.
way I look at it is I think George from CavDev.org would agree with me, is the way to look at it with Kathy O'Brien. There's some truth. There is a lot of machinations of people that were demonically possessed at the time, or were just mentally ill, that just came out in their writings and what they say. So I do believe that Kathy O'Brien was molested. I do think that she was part of the MK Ultra program.
I do too.
So the same with Fiona Barnett. I do believe she was molested. Now, by all the people that she's mentioned, logistics just ain't there.
Right. No, the Anthony Kidman one, that's the one I probably believe them.
That is correct. Yes, I was about to say that. Yes, I agree. Yes,
totally. It's the Nixon and Billy Graham, and then going from California to Sydney in one day. And I know flights, but just she said, I flew back to forth 10 times in one. I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to totally quote her wrong, but just and same thing with Kathy O'Brien and who's her handler? Is it Marks Phillips?
That was her husband. Yes.
Is he still alive?
I don't know.
I know that was her. Well, that, and a lot of people.
Kathy O'Brien is now completely in the Q deception and backstrong.
Well, Jason Shurka had her on a couple months ago, and she has a very Who was the other one? Bryce Taylor, who said, did she say Reagan? She had said, and then there was a third one. Arizona Wilder. Was that the one that
Who completely now says that Ike used her and that they were not reptilians, but in fact demons.
duh is the kid.
Yep.
That,
But hey, at one time, a very important truther gatekeeped, and his name was Bill Cooper. But then again, he eventually told the truth in an interview that got out later about aliens. And I ask, so
that's where on the alien stuff we've covered a lot of ground. And I don't agree with her on everything, but I think Ashayana Dean has the most clarity. Do you know her?
no.
Yeah, I won't go into that only because she talks about what is so dangerous about Ike is that he tells you some truths, but doesn't give you the tools to protect yourself. If you have this kind of knowledge and then don't give people spiritual armor, that's a suicide mission.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you don't have Jesus, you're not putting on your spiritual armor, of course.
Yes.
But what truth is Ike really telling? I mean, I would say, some of it, but Mike really just supposedly, allegedly gets his information. He rips off people, and a lot of it is automatic writing through him too, as well. And I mean, he's talked about, in his earlier books being influenced by the ascended masters, which are just demons. Okay. So, I mean, the thing about Ike is, he claims it was like when I was a New Ager, when Quinton, I never really read the works of Alice Bailey and Blavatsky and I read some of Pike, but disagreed with him, obviously, because I was a Christian Gnostic, but I was still heretical. But I just thought that they just had it wrong. They were just, I was right. My subjective truth was right, and they were wrong. And that's how most New Agers look at it: is their subjective truth is correct, and then these people just have it wrong. But when you start really reading all of their works together, whether it's Barbara Marx Hubbard, whether it's Alice Bailey, whether it's Albert Pike, whether it's the non-commodity library that was funded by the Rockefellers, Elaine Pagels,
Not even real. The non-commodity 1945. Like, what's your impression of those?
I talked about it in my show. It could
Okay.
be complete forgery. It could be real, and it's just a writings. I mean, some of it matches up with Irenaeus against heresies. I mean, me as a Gnostic and reading all the Gnostic writings, when I read against heresies, I was like, well, yeah, so I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. But I will say that again, I believe it all stems from the lie that the devil, that the serpent told Eve, that if you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, instead of actually eat from the tree of life, that you would be like gods and you would never die. And so it's that same satanic lie and perversion of what God says and God's truth that has been done since then into the mystery schools, and then the Gnosticism, and then call it by whatever you want to call it. And it's just when there's not much difference between her and Ike. If you really listen, it's just that Ike is kind of like, we're fighting against the world order. Well, Alice Bailey says she's fighting against the world order too. Barbara Marx Hubbard says she's fighting against the world order too. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's vain, empty words.
The one thing I'd give him credit on, he did. There was a prime minister or member of parliament that was a bachelor forever. That was, again, like a groomer. And again, the Fitzpatrick informer gave him credit on that turned out to be manifest.
I'm not gonna say I get everything wrong.
Right.
I
mean, I hear you. No, you're on it. Spiritually, I think he's so lost and so off the mark that it just like makes my head spin sometimes, and frankly, kind of makes me feel sad for him.
And I don't necessarily think that Ike, in of himself, he thinks he's doing wrong. Maybe Ike's kids, I definitely don't think that they think they're doing wrong. Ike's kids are a little bit different than David himself. Granted, they still push New Age philosophies like their dad, but I think generally they're different than their father. You could make the argument that David knows exactly what he's doing. You could also make the argument that maybe he doesn't really know what he's doing, and the demons are just filling him full of all this nonsense, and he just believes it, and he's going around propagating it. Also, with his own arrogancy that he's got to repent of too as well, right? And so I don't know. I mean, I look at David, like I look at Alex Jones. I mean, Alex Jones is completely in debauchery. I mean, he's completely new age at this point. He always has been, if you really honestly analyze what he said. I mean, he's completely Tex Mars outed Alex Jones many years ago, and Tex Mars was a great man of the Lord, and I mean, Alex Jones is completely in debauchery. I mean, he's hanging out with Charlie Sheen. I mean, Charlie Sheen was pedophile. He's got hot skip and a jump for Alex Jones.
Who
So
who accused Sheen of rape? Was it Corey Feldman? Who accused Sheen of raping them?
I think so. Yes. Let me look.
I've been Corey Haim. One of the Coreys, I thought.
One of the Coreys did. I know that the divorce that he had with Denise Richards came out of his inclinations to underage pornography. Just so disgusting. But yeah, I mean, I
shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry. It's just no.
It's just so sickening, man. I know. Sometimes it's a natural response, a kind of defense mechanism. Like if you don't laugh at some of the stuff, how bad it is, you'd go mad, And it's like you're not trying to laugh to be inappropriate, but it's just so sick. I mean, Alex Jones. I mean, the pictures of him with Blair White, and then him getting caught with tranny porn on his phone, and I mean, like Alex is completely just. He's just a debauched, fallen man given into his own arrogancy and sexual lusts and pleasures and hedonism. And it's sad. I mean, it's the planned destruction of Alex Jones, as Josh Reeves used to say. I mean, it's all there.
Is that coming next? Well, here's what I see.
What's happening right now? Okay. It's been happening for a while.
The plan destruction, because I'm trying to see the layout. I'm tying this in for our viewers. I'm not trying to get back into the horse racing. What I'm saying is that Trump endorsing JD Vance, it proves to me that it's the real deal about him running it.
And who's JD Vance's candidate? Who's funding JD Vance? Who's behind JD Vance?
Well, I have my ideas, but you tell me.
Peter Thiel.
That's right.
Peter Thiel's funding JD Vance, and Peter Thiel is as wicked as evil as the day is long. I could spend, spend hours discussing how evil and subversive Peter Thiel is, but also Michael Flynn.
So do you think Trump's going to pick? Because so first I want people to let go of the thought that the Mueller I view like Biden, a geriatric empty vessel who they propped up to do what they want to. But that assumes that there may be some true believers of Russian collusion within the U.S. government. You'd have to ask. I don't know Andrew Weissman that well. I've also heard.
I think there's always been Russian collusion in the American government. Always, I mean, you look at Skokovo and Biden, for example. I mean, there's nothing new.
No, but it's the collusion again. It's they say it's
over the election, I guess.
Free but not fair is what their point. Like, it was a free election, but it wasn't fair. Russian disinformation. Again, it was not. It didn't really get to the epicenter of the perestroika deception or the Soviet ties back to Israel and the triangle between the FBI, CIA, Mossad, and the KGB, which Golda Meir was the foreign minister to the Soviet Union. So again, I would take her off your idols list to conservatives that love Israel, that just think Israel can do no wrong. The point being that it really looks like Trump is serious about this phoenix rising again in his own trajectory. And so I'm trying to think, what can we expect? Like then, so you had maybe you're just joking, but you said 2024 will be Trump, Flynn, and then Hillary McChrystal, which would just be.
Yeah, that's my belief.
Wow, that would lay out.
Nothing would divide the country more. Now, I will say this. If Trump wins, we might be etching closer to the revelation of Jesus Christ unfolding. If he doesn't and Hillary wins, might be a little bit of it's gonna be a little bit longer before Jesus comes back, maybe. And instead we get a civil war in the United States.
Wow. Could, so what do you and I usually don't go into this, but I don't usually fall down these holes, but usually it's because they're planted there. Like all the talk about Trump as Speaker of the House, which I kind of rolled my eyes at, but
now, yeah, I did too, but now I'm not.
There's clearly something. I don't know what they're trying to do.
I mean, when Matt Gaetz and all them came out and said they will make Trump Speaker of the House, what am I supposed to think?
I mean, they've not dropped it in a year and a half. They've said it repeatedly, and so I can only go by a person's own words.
Biden gets removed by which amendment is it for mental health?
25th Amendment.
25th. So they talk all about Trump being removed for the 25th Amendment, but Biden actually gets removed by the 25th Amendment.
What would they do with Kamala?
I have no idea.
That poor woman. I don't think about her. I guess.
Kamala's done a lot of bad things too. So they all have. I mean, no, there's no one that represents us as Christian conservatives. There's no one. There's just it's quite, but then again, there isn't supposed to be anybody. We're supposed to look to Jesus. And to God.
Do you have 5 more minutes? Then we'll wrap up.
Yes, okay? Yes, of course. Perfect. Yes, of course.
Dude, this has been amazing. So
I've enjoyed this, Quinton. Definitely going to have you on my channel as well, brother.
Oh God, thank you. That would be a blast. So the one thing you mentioned something, and I went through a lot of your content. I tried to do my homework, but because I love Phyllis Schlafly. And did she get Charlotte Iserbyt had her concerns about Schlafly being off base with the charter schools, but you said she had some connections to the Contra scandal, and what else?
I'd have to pull up my information on the Contras, but she was a founding member of the Council for National Policy. They call her the Grande Dame of conservatism. Anytime I hear the word Grande Dame, but as I said, Rosalind was also Grande Dame too. Anytime you hear the term Rosalind Bentley, I think, was also another Grand Dame of the CNP. Okay. That's what Charlotte Iserbyt said. And so, of course, Charlotte Iserbyt, God bless her. She outed the CNP. It almost cost her son. Her son was almost killed by the CNP. She talked about that on Jeff Rense's show. That was a few years ago. I believe Charlotte Iserbyt is with the Lord. Yeah, I mean, there's numerous connections between Phyllis Schlafly and the Iran Contras and funding. She used to make care kits for the Contras. And so there's numerous. I mean, it would take the biggest one I want to talk about, though. It'd take me too long to discuss all those, and I have to bring up my notes.
Anna Navarro eat them all the care kits.
Now I'll say this too. Now, interesting, my next Tucker Exposed series, I want to talk about when Tucker was down there with CNP Neil Patel, who's advisor to Cheney, one of the founders of Daily Caller. They're both down there during their college days down there in Nicaragua. What are they doing down there in Nicaragua during their college days, huh? What were they doing down there in Nicaragua during their college days during the Iran Contra affair? Were they reporting to good old Daddy Dick Carlson? What's up with that? So that's a discussion for another time there. Wow. But Josh Reeves taught a lot about Phyllis Schlafly, and she's a grandmother to conservatism, godmother, okay, whatever you call it. When I was researching Craig Spence. And Craig Spence was very much connected to the Franklin scandal. He was part of the Colorado neighborhood. He was a Republican lobbyist. And, he had his house wired up like Epstein had their house wired up. So, they'd have all these parties where, all these pedophilic parties before Epstein. This is all part of the Franklin scandal. Henry Vincent wrote an excellent book on it called The DC Confessions of a DC Madam. It was also co-written by Nick Bryant. Of the Franklin scandal, a researcher, excellent researcher. And so when I was doing my research on Craig Spence, of seeing his connections to Star Wars infamous Lieutenant General Daniel Graham, who's a major Council for National Policy member and worked for Craig Spence. when I was doing my research on Craig Spence, because I wanted to bring out research that people had never looked at. One interestingly enough, on a few of the reports of people that were frequently seen in Craig J. Spence parties. Now, at Craig J. Spence parties, pedophilia was happening. Was Phil Schlafly.
Okay, and this is from I'm sorry, whose book was this? Is the
This was from the book. This was from news reports when they were discussing frequent guests to Craig J. Spence parties. Phyllis Schlafly was in numerous news reports.
Okay.
Of being a frequent guest of Craig J. Spence parties.
Okay.
That has caught me off guard.
It did me too. And okay. Interesting.
But I mean, Franklin Skinner was going on the Council for National Policy. I mean, she was the grand dame of the CNP. She was a founding member of the CNP. I mean,
was she?
Yes, she was. 1981.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Only, I guess on her, like when Iserby, there was just so much, like, to me, it seemed like she really genuinely thought you could use the Republican Party as a vessel for the change you wanted to see. And bringing Cardinal Mencende over from Hungary, it was like, he's one of the genuine, this Vigano guy, I don't know what he's very histrionic. I don't know what his deal is. Mencende was the real deal, I truly believe. And so there's so many things that I feel like she got right. Okay. I don't know what to make.
I mean, Iserby's like, I'm friends with Schlafly, but anytime I try to get anything done in the CNP nexus to try to save this country, it never happened. I mean, that's what Iserby said. So, okay. Iran Contra,
I wonder, the reason I had so much respect for her, because she was, in a lot of ways, she was like a Henry Macko level, not leaker's not the right word, but she was really, her level of truth telling, her books on Kissinger in the 70s, it's like she goes one notch below calling him what he was, like a Soviet double agent. And she tried to say that it was, this grand chess game. It's because of the narcissism. No, it's because they're two sides of the same eagle, like you said earlier. And she came so close to stuff that really was very, very provocative.
But that's what a lot of them do, though. They get. That's how excellent propaganda works. Is propaganda is not all lies.
Limited.
It is. You wouldn't believe it. Most of you would just spit it out. You'd be like, oh. Propaganda is a mixture of truth and lies. Now you could say how much truth and how much lies. Now you could argue 90% truth and 10% lies if those lies are purposeful and not just not knowing. Sure. Or even if they're lies of omission, that's propaganda. If you're purposely leaving out things, it's propaganda.
Well, on that note,
Robert Welsh, founder of the John Birch Society, which I necessarily don't despise as much as I despise the rest of these people. But I do have my issues with Welsh. He was a Mason. And he took money from the Rockefellers and Court to Eustace Mullins to fund the John Birch Society. He was neighbors to Henry Kissinger.
He was neighbors?
Neighbors, Henry Kissinger.
Well, now that you say it, Gloria Steinem is very clearly like the original Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a CIA creator, she was a Playboy bunny, which was a sex worker, sex kitten. I've heard people, I'm not going to go this far because I haven't, not because I don't believe it, but because I haven't researched it. MK Ultra victim, the way she was like the grand dame of feminism, the access, the control she had over media, that's not an accident. You don't get that kind of notoriety and control overnight. That's because you're an asset and a figurehead. And I guess, Schlafly never really she said that Steinem was a bimbo, because Steinem wasn't very smart, or isn't very smart. She's still alive. She's pushing 90. I don't know why she never just called her what she was, which is clearly an intelligence asset.
Well, with Schlafly, as Josh Reeves discussed when he went to this event, that she was speaking about admiralty law. The CNP is obsessed with admiralty law. They're obsessed with admiralty law, and they're obsessed with space law.
What's it called?
admiralty law. So they're obsessed with admiralty law.
Yes.
And they're obsessed with the law of space, of colonizing the moon and parsing it out. I talked about how Barbara Marx Hubbard was obsessed with that too. The CNP had numerous, they had this lawyer, I forgot his name offhand. He was like a space lawyer. And the CNP would just have him on and just like, I actually have one of his speeches to the CNP where he's just discussing about how they're going to parcel up certain parts of space. The Hunts are there and the Kochs are there. They're talking about how they're going to get in space, and it's like, okay, that's weird. I know it's an aside, but it's still weird. But Josh Reeves talks about how when he went to this meeting, and interestingly enough, it was one of the end games. I think was it Endgame. It was one of the 2.0 documentaries that InfoWars put out. She actually used film for Phyllis Schlafly speaking about admiralty law to this meeting. Okay, and so that's how we knew that Alex Jones was part of the CNP, because she was speaking to the CNP.
What, was he there or something?
Yes, filming it.
No,
all right.
Shit.
Yes. So that was interesting, but. Josh, he saw, her giving another speech at admiralty law, this other conference that was down there in Texas. And the way that he explains it, he talks about how they just like worship her like she's some sort of goddess. I mean, she is the grand dame after all, So, I mean, again, for them to put her name in the people of Craig J. Spence and then completely just drop that, you would think, if you had, you have this big pedophile nexus that is Franklin, right? And you think, okay, you got Phyllis Schlafly, who all the liberals hate, right? Like they hate her, they despise her.
Yeah.
And they got her caught up in this pedophile ring, and then you never hear about it. But then again, I've never heard about it either. Like, out of all the people that have covered Craig J. Spence, who have covered Franklin, did any of them? I mean, it's possible they never came across those news articles. I was researching, pulling out newspapers.com, of anything I could find out about Craig J. Spence, and just going through over hundreds of newspaper clips about him. Maybe they missed it. But you think, they have the kill shot, that you could use on Phyllis Schlafly, that she's going to these parties of this pedophile homosexual financier. And Craig J. Spence was homosexual. I thought Phyllis Schlafly was against homosexuality, but she's going to the house of a homosexual pedophile who throws homosexual pedophile parties.
Well, her oldest son is gay, John.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and she got called out on that in a Today Show. And they tried to ambush her and say, homosexual with your son, is it genetic? Is it choice? And she said, we've had her son. I'm not trying to defend her. I'm just, you're right. Like the Trump, Epstein parties at Mar-a-Lago, you'd think if they hated her so much, they would have used, I mean, there are very few people even know who Denny Hastert is.
No, or they didn't even really use the Trump stuff either. They buried so much about Trump's connections to Epstein. It's ridiculous. They brought out some of them, but they don't bring up RFK Jr.'s numerous connections to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, they're almost as much as Trump, if not, or the Clintons. But they've completely kept that. I mean, that's one of my biggest concerns, is that whenever they want to torpedo the anti-vax movement that I think that they've set up, I really do think they've set up Del Bigtree and RFK Jr. and Robert Malone. Anytime they want to pull the trigger on RFK Jr., you have the Epstein thing right then and there.
Although that would make Hillary as the nominee again in 2024 a little trickier.
Yes, it would. I don't think they're going to do that, but they could if they needed to.
You're absolutely right, and that's back to what's it called? Compromat, is that in the Russian? Like the KGB, the sex. Supposedly that's where Mossad. That's a tradition of honeypot, sexual honeypot that the intelligence use, and that's I'm just laughing because it's even like now that Vicky Ward woman, is that her name, the Miami Herald journalist who broke the story, now like Anna Navarro's interviewing her for
I think that was Julie K. Brown with Miami Herald, right? You
could be right. Anyway, the woman they're just trying to like,
let me look,
whitewash her stuff. They're interviewing her in the mainstream to act like they give a shit about this when we know they really don't. Just to
we know that Miami Herald was Julie K. Brown.
Yeah,
we know that Vicky Ward, I mean, there's connections between Vicky Ward and Conrad Black and Trump. And I mean, her own connections to the Epstein nexus. I mean, there's pictures of her after Epstein got busted of her still being friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. Same with RFK Jr. RFK Jr. appeared at a party with, I want to remember quickly, I think it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. So it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, RFK Jr., and they're at Ghislaine Maxwell's house in 2000. I think it was 2014, 2000, somewhere in mid 2010s. So
a woman named Kirby Summers I follow.
Mhm.
I don't know if you follow, but
I'm aware of Kirby Summers.
I'm sorry, I forget who she was abused by. It was not Epstein. It was not Maxwell or anybody. Or she may have been procured. I'm sorry, but these details, I know it seems like I'm being OCD because I just
He was Jewish.
It was Rickless or something.
Rickless,
yes. And so Maxwell may have procured her, I believe, but she has a new book out. I'd love to get her on my program about Bill Barr, who and his father too, Donald, wrote that very strange book. Yikes.
Which you should ask Mark from Houston Tonic Live, because he has one of the only copies of that are left of Space Relations, Donald Barr's book. So he purchased it before, like the prices for it now are like crazy for it.
Oh,
but
no,
I was either purchased it or someone gave it to him. I don't remember. But he's got one of the copies of Space Relations, and it is, oh boy, talking about underage, just debauchery and just space, and it's like, did L. Ron Hubbard write this? Like, it's ooh.
Wow. Oh wow.
Sex slavery and like,
And
what was Donald Barr's fetishes?
All I can say is I'm not saying that I think I sent you some of those clips that they think that a lot of the Trump sexual assault, I think it's that Donnie Darko, he thinks a lot of the Trump sexual assault accusations were revelation of the method, trying to pin men and women against each other. They didn't. There's
some truth to that, yes.
Right, and so we're not saying it's good. Oh, Trump would never do that. He's such a good person. He would. Well, I mean, Trump's Trump, but a lot of Gloria Allred, I'm convinced is an intel asset, and so every woman she brought forward, it's again not saying you believe them, don't believe them. No, they don't. If anything, you don't want them to be real because then you can't control them as much, and so you put stories out there that are, and Trump's in on this, mind you. So you don't need to feel bad for him.
And one last thing, who was Gloria Allred's child?
Lisa Bloom.
And who did Lisa Bloom represent?
Oh God,
Katie Johnson. But the real Katie Johnson or the fake Katie Johnson?
That's well, at that perfect ending, we might have to cover some things off camera, but to our viewers, thank you so much, and God bless.
Yes, God bless.